Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for checking out the Leading Edge podcast. I'm your host, Eric Thompson. This is episode number 4. And let me first say that I'm really enjoying the feedback that I've been getting, as we just embark on this new little project that's our podcast. Lots of nice comments that I'm getting from people in person, by email, even on the phone. Lots of people who are enjoying this. So thank you so much. And thanks for being a part of it. Thanks for engaging. I'm putting this one together, this episode number 4, because I get asked all the time about goals, right? So whether it's from agents in my office or other agents that I work with or other owners that I work with, managers, the topic of goals comes up all the time, no surprise, regardless of the time of year. Certainly in December and January, it's a big topic, but really all year long, people are talking about their goals, wondering about goals, and overall, they are wondering how to achieve them. So I had a huge aha, this big revelation about 2 years ago related to goals. And I want to share that with you, share the story behind it, because I think it's going to really help you out. I think it's going to increase the odds that you hit your own goals, that you achieve those big dreams that you want to. So that's my intention with this one, is I want to share this revelation because I think it's really impactful. I think it's valuable and powerful, and I think it's really going to take you to a new place. And I think also it's going to make you say, wow, I've never thought about goals that way. I've never thought about achieving a goal in that way. This is really helping me out. It's kind of shed new light on it. So that's what I expect, and that's my intention here as we have this conversation. All right. So I'll tell you the aha first before I get into the story about how I came to this aha. So the aha is this, and I'll put it to you as a question. All right, so here's the question for you to think about. The question is, so when is a goal achieved? When is a goal achieved? And you may think, well, it's achieved when it's achieved, right? So if you're running a running race, if you have a goal to be first place, if you cross the finish line first, that's when the goal is achieved. Well, I would argue that the goal is actually achieved way before that. So I would argue that the goal is actually achieved way before you see the results. So if it is a running race and if your goal is to cross the finish line in first place, what I would argue and what my revelation was is that the goal is achieved way before you break the tape at the finish line, putting your arms up in first place. The goal is achieved way before that. So I'll share a couple stories related to this and how I came to this aha. Here's the first story. So a lot of you know that I'm a big biker, a big cyclist, not a motorcycler, but a biker. And I've been a biker for a long time, a cyclist for a long time. I love to ride my bike. And it's just, one of the things I'm super passionate about, one of the things I'm really into. Just a few things I'm really into hobby-wise. Skiing is one, boating is one, and biking is one. I love to ride my road bike. I love to ride my mountain bike. So you should also know that I own a single-speed mountain bike. So what that means, if you're not a mountain biker, what that means is it only has one gear. And so when the going gets tough, when the trail gets steep, what that means, there's no option to shift into an easier gear. The only option is to pedal harder or to get off the bike and walk. And I got this bike about 2 years ago, this single speed mountain bike, and I love it. And what I discovered early on is it's super challenging, right? It's super hard to ride, especially uphill, especially because I'm a big dude. And so physics is working against me going up this hill, especially when I can't shift into a lower gear. So there I was. I first had this bike a couple years ago, and there's a trail near my home that I love to ride. It's called the Mill Creek Trail. It's about 20 minutes from my house, and I love it because it's so close to my house, and it feels like I'm in the way backcountry, right? It's big pine trees and beautiful views of these big rock formations. It just feels like I'm lost in the wilderness, even though I'm only 20 minutes from my house. And along the Mill Creek Trail, there's this section of trail that goes uphill that's essentially like a little mini staircase, right? It's like a nature staircase. So it's like a combination of rocks and logs, and there are 3 steps that you have to get up. And when I first had my single speed mountain bike, I could not ride these 3 steps. It was way too hard. It was too steep. It was too technical. I'm just not that good at the time. It wasn't that good to get up that part of the trail. And so it would be kind of this combination of a real joy in riding and having a blast, and also frustration because I could never figure out this one part of the trail. So what came to me is, I teach a lot about visualization and using that as a way to help people achieve goals in their business. So I thought, well, why not apply that to riding my mountain bike, especially up this little 3-step part of the trail, right? So I started visualizing, literally visualizing, like close my eyes. I would visualize getting up that part of the trail, right? I would just really see what it would be like and see the exact line I would have to take, and see myself like pedaling super hard but still keeping my balance and making it up those three steps. So I did this over and over again. Like maybe I'd be driving along. I wouldn't close my eyes, of course, when I was driving, but I could be driving along. I'd think about it, or laying in bed about to fall asleep, close my eyes, visualize getting up that part of the trail. And I did because it was such a big deal to me. Like it was, and also such a frustration that I couldn't do it. So there I go. After all this visualization, I go ride my bike on this trail, and sure enough, I made it, right? So I made it up this part of the trail, up these 3 steps. And the funny part is, right after that, there's another kind of tricky section that I usually can ride no problem, but that I fell on that part because I was so excited I made it up the 3 steps. I wasn't really paying attention. So I fell on that part, but I made it up the hardest part. And so what hit me is, wow, I achieved that goal a while ago. I achieved that goal when I started to visualize myself getting up there. That's when I made that goal happen. It wasn't when I all of a sudden found myself at the top of those 3 little steps. I achieved that goal long before that. I achieved that goal when I started visualizing. There was no doubt that day when I took my bike out. There was no doubt at all. There was no question that I was going to get up that, because I'd made such a big deal out about that in my head. So about the same time as I had my little accomplishment in my mountain bike, the Olympics were being held. So these are the Rio Olympics, the Summer Olympics in Rio. Olympics being held. I love watching the Olympics. And about that time, Katie Ledecky was becoming an Olympic star. So you may remember her. She's a swimmer. Amazing swimmer. She won 3 gold medals at those Olympics. So 3 gold medals in those summer games in Rio. And I remember watching her because I love watching swimming, and just watching her crush the competition and have this massive, massive goal. And so I started reading about her, kind of doing some research online, because I really get fascinated by people that achieve big things like that. So I started reading about her, and what I read was it was 3 years ago that her and her coach picked those Olympics as the goal, as the focus, and 3 years ago that they had decided that she was going to win 3 gold medals. So it was 3 years before that they put that as a goal, and then they mapped out the game plan on how it was going to happen and how she was going to get there. So as part of their plan, they laid out a training regimen, a training schedule that was going to involve, get this, 70,000 yards of swimming per week. I'll say that again. That's 70,000 yards per week that she was going to swim leading up 3 years in advance, leading up to those Olympics. That was going to be 3 years into the future. She was going to swim 70,000 yards a week. Now, of course, there were some weeks more, some weeks less, but on average, 70,000 yards a week. That's, of course, 10,000 yards a day. I want to put that into perspective for those of you that may not be super into swimming, but imagine a kind of a normal swimming pool, the kind with the black lanes on the bottom, and those pools tend to be 25 yards long. So that would be, to do 10,000 yards in a day, that's 400 lengths of a pool every single day. So going up and down that pool 400 times a day for 3 years straight is the equivalent of what she did. So she shows up at the Rio Olympics, and you combine the work that she put in, the intention that she had that started 3 years ago, plus her talent, and you know what? It was a done deal. It was a done deal that she was going to win 3 gold medals in those Olympics. And so she won gold medals in the 200 freestyle, the 400 freestyle, and the 800 freestyle. Just rocked people's worlds, right? Huge star, huge achievement. She was expected to do some great things, but it was just amazing, incredible for her to achieve those 3 gold medals. And so, I was watching this and reading about this right about the time I had my little mountain bike victory. And again, it hit me. You know what? She didn't win those gold medals when she touched the wall in first place. She didn't win those gold medals when she stood on top of the podium when it was put around her neck. She won those gold medals 3 years ago. Those gold medals were won 3 years ago. It was a done deal. It was inevitable. that she was going to show up at those Olympics and win. Of course, she had to have some things go her way. Of course, she had to swim really hard and be focused and have her game face on and all those things, of course. And you know what? Given everything that went into that, she was going to win, right? It was a done deal. Now, another quick swimming example, those same Olympics, a guy named Ryan Murphy, he's a backstroker. So he set the world record there at those Olympics in the backstroke. And the story came out that he wrote a book to his mom when he was 6 years old, not 6 years before, but when he was 6 years old, he wrote a book to his mom that said that he was going to one day be an Olympic champion and set the world record. He wrote that when he was 6. Many years later, there he was at the Rio Olympics, and he did just that. So when did Ryan Murphy win the gold medal? When did he set the world record? I would argue it happened when he was 6. It was a done deal when he showed up to those Olympics. So combined intention and all the work that was put in and the talent that he had, it was a done deal. So my question to you is, hearing all this, hearing about my belief, and hopefully you're buying into this belief now, my question to you is, what have you already achieved? What is it that you've already achieved? And you can think of it as a spectrum, right? So on one end of the spectrum would be goals that are a done deal. And you may have set the time frame out at some point in the future. Maybe it's the end of the year or the end of the month or whatever. But you already achieved it? So if it's already achieved, if it's a done deal based on everything that you're doing, that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum would be, it sits there as just a hope. Gosh, it would be nice if I was to do that, but nothing's happening that is going to make that goal a done deal, that's going to make it inevitable. There's no way that it's already achieved. So I think we all have to look at, when it comes to our goals, I think we have to look at three things. There are three things that we can do, that we can have in place if we want to have the goal like pre-achieved, achieved in advance, inevitable. Three things. Number one, the vision, right? So that, do you have a picture in your head of what it looks like, feels like to accomplish that? Like, have you really instituted that into your brain, ingrained that into you, and you know exactly what it's like? So do you have that vision? So that helped me a ton in my little mountain bike victory. I knew what it looked like for me to get up there. So then when I got there, I knew exactly what to do, right? I knew exactly what to do because it already happened so many times in my head. It already happened. So that's first. Second thing for us to look at is our environment, right? So looking at our environment, does our environment line up with what it is that we want to achieve? So I'm guessing that Katie Ledecky's environment was super conducive to her being a world-class athlete, right? So it probably didn't include a whole lot of, fast food and a whole lot of staying up late or, doing bad things for her body or things that would screw with her mindset. She probably surrounded herself with people who really believed in her and who were aligned with her goal and were there to support her, kept her on track. She probably set up her diet that way, her sleep patterns that way, right? All of her exercise that way, did things to get her mindset right. So is your environment totally aligned with everything that you want to achieve? And then the third thing I think we have to look at is our practice. So not just practice like Katie did, swimming 70,000 yards a week, but also practice in setting goals. Because I think a lot of us just don't get a whole lot of practice when it comes to setting goals. We practice once a year, right? We practice in December, we practice in January. That's our one time a year where we kind of practice, and then those goals are put on a shelf to collect dust for 12 months. We might even pull them off the shelf 12 months later and then kind of have a reflection back oh yeah, kind of forgot about that. But that's our only practice. So I think what we can do is we can practice a whole lot better and a whole lot more frequently around setting goals. So what that looks like is just breaking it down, right? Breaking down goals into little goals that you can practice over and over again. So monthly goals, weekly goals, daily goals, give yourself a whole lot of practice. You know what it looks like to set a goal, to work toward it, and you know what it feels like to achieve it. And that gives you just a ton of momentum, right? So again, your question for you to think about, what is it that you've already achieved? What is it that's a done deal? What is it that's inevitable? What box has already been checked, even though you haven't seen the result yet, based on everything that you're doing? Hey, so if you have found this to be helpful, hopefully you have, and hopefully you like things like this to keep you inspired and motivated and on track, I encourage you to check out my program I've built called The Leading Edge. And you want to go check out the website called jointheleadingedge.com. That's where you're going to see more details about how to become a part of it and how to get all the tips and tools and training and resources that I have for you. Again, that's jointheleadingedge.com. I appreciate so much you joining this podcast and again, being a part of it. Appreciate all the feedback. Keep it coming. If you have ideas on things that you want me to talk about and cover, and happy to field those inquiries and listen to those things. In the meantime, have an awesome day. We will catch you in the next one.